Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining. I just wanted to share with you a greeting card that I made using Planners Anonymous's Butterfly Skies subscription kit. I received this kit in the mail and it was so vibrant and so beautiful that I wanted to use it right away. So here I had made a greeting card previously, and I posted it to the Planners Anonymous Facebook group, and so many of you loved it. So I thought I'd go ahead and do a run through of how I created it. I am going to change a couple of elements, but for the most part it's going to be the same, just maybe some different colors here and there, some different colored pens and things like that. So before I start, I just wanted to let you know that in this video I'm using a die cutting machine. I personally use the Anna Griffin Impress. I love it because it's electronic and I don't have to crank it. Nothing against those that use a crank. I just like to just push it through and have the machine do the rest for me. So this first die that I'm using is from Gina K Designs. It's fairly new, and I watch her card making lives every Monday and Thursday. So as soon as I saw this love die, I completely fell in love with it and had to purchase it right away. So it comes with this set, and this particular kit comes with a stencil, it comes with these dies, and it comes with a stamp set as well. So in this card I'm going to be using the love die and the outline love die. I'm also going to be using the Butterfly Skies stamp set, and I'm going to be using these infinity dies, these nested heart shapes from Hero Arts. And then I'm going to be using these rounded rectangular stitched dies. These are generic. I believe they're from Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check my orders to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that these ones are from Amazon. Alrighty, so I'll be using stamps, I'll be using dies, I'll be using glue, I'll be using a glitter pen, some gel pens and things like that. So right here you'll see I'm kind of thinking it through. I'm kind of thinking about what I want to change up with this card. The one thing that I'm pretty sure I'm going to show here is what I didn't like and what I wanted to change if I could, and now I have the opportunity to, is within that heart window and inside the card there's another piece of purple. There's a purple heart inside, and I just felt like it didn't give enough contrast. I didn't like that it matched the base of the card, and so I know I want to change that up. So here I'm just taking an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I'm cutting it in half, and then I'm going to score that in half to make an A2 sized card. And an A2 sized card is 5.5 by 4.25, so it's a quarter of a letter size sheet. So I'm taking my scoreboard here and I'm going to score it at 4.25 because I cut it at 5.5. So I'm going to go ahead and score it at 4.25, and I'm going to make two card bases. Since I have my scoreboard out, I'm going to go ahead and make two cards, and then I'll have one for later in case I need to make another purple card, which I can definitely see in the future. So might as well do this one as well. And I love scoreboards. They come in handy, especially if you're a card maker. So I'm a beginner card maker. Well, actually, that's not true. I used to own an invitation business, but invitations are a little different than card makers. But I used to have an invitation business in the past, so I have a lot of card stock and a lot of tools and things that I brought back, because this was probably 25 years ago that I did invitations. So card making to me is a little different. So it's nice to be able to do this again, though, to get back into the paper, because I love playing with paper. So here I'm just pointing out that I used the Planners Anonymous stamp set that came with my subscription box, and I used a tone-on-tone ink. In this card that I'm going to make right now, I'm going to use Versamark instead, because I felt like the inking in the background of that existing card was just a little too light. I wanted it to show up a little bit more. And actually, it shows up on the camera more than it shows in person. So it's really, really, really faint in person. So I want to go ahead and use Versamark. I didn't have Versamark on hand when I made the first card, so I'm wanting to try it out with the second chance that I have. So I'm using my Misty stamp positioning tool here. and I'm going to be stamping in the area that I'm pointing at. So for those of you who are hesitant to use your Planner's Anonymous stamps, I really encourage you to bring them out and start practicing. Stamping, I feel, is an art that you really have to practice. And when you practice, I think you'll become more comfortable using them, and you'll be more comfortable using them in your projects. And having a stamp positioning tool is really, really, really helpful. And you'll see why in just a moment when I start stamping. So I didn't want to use those shaded butterfly sets, the kind of blocky butterfly, because I didn't want it to stand out too much in my card. But in my initial card, I had just stamped that piece twice, just like that. I literally taped the entire stamp sheet to the flap of my Misty, and then I just stamped it like that in 2 different areas of the card. So this time I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and strategically place the stamps where I want them in my background. And I don't need to put any powder down because I don't plan on embossing any of this. I just plan on creating a watermark with the Versamark ink. So I'm just going to kind of place these scattered around. I know I'm going to be cutting a heart out in this area, but I'm still going to place my stamps all around everywhere. Not really worry about that cutout, because I don't want to avoid the cutout and then not have enough stamped area in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and place stamps kind of everywhere. Some of the stamps that I'm not using are there's one that says I am, and it's a beautiful stamp for a sentiment where it's appropriate, but for this background it won't work, so I'm not going to use the I am. And then there was one other stamp that I'm not going to use that's in the kit, but for the majority I use most of the stamps within the kit. So what's really great about the Planner's Anonymous subscription kit is you just get everything that you need to start creating right away. You get double-sided patterned papers, you get washi, you get a full-size stamp set, you get stickers for your planner, die cuts, what else? Journaling cards, quote cards. I mean, just everything. It's one of the best subscription kits for planners and creators out there, in my opinion. I just love Planner's Anonymous, and I didn't start subscribing until last year. And so what I did is I went on buy sell trade groups and just started collecting all the past kits that I had missed out on. So I pretty much have the majority of all the kits since they started, believe it or not, because I was on a serious mission. So here I'm just continuing to put these stamps down and kind of figure out where I want them. Just gonna lay them all down. And what's great about this Misty is I'll be able to pick up all these stamps with that flap that's towards the top of the frame here. And then I'll be able to ink them all at one time and stamp them down all at one time. So having a stamp positioning tool is really, really, really handy, especially if you're wanting to create your own background stamps like this. Now that heart there, I'm going to end up picking it up after all, because I remember with my first version of the card, I used the heart to fill in any empty spaces. So I'm going to go ahead and not use that for this initial stamping, and I'm going to go back, put it on an acrylic block, and stamp in all the areas that seem to need some filling. All right. Okay, so now it's time to pick up the stamps using the door of the Misty. And this is a smaller Misty. I also have a 12 by 12 Misty, but this is a really, really nice size for A2 card making. So I'm just making sure they're all stuck on there. And then I'm going to go ahead and ink it up with Versamark watermarking ink. And I love this ink. I used to have it before, and then when I got back into card making, it dried out, and so I had to get a new one. So this is a brand new juicy one. But I love it because when you use a colored cardstock such as I'm using here, it just creates a watermark. So it just it's almost like a tone on tone, like what I was trying to achieve with the first card, only I think better. And you can emboss with this too, so I could have applied a clear embossing powder to it, but I really just wanted it kind of in the background. I didn't want it to show up too much, so I chose not to emboss. So in a couple of areas, I felt like it needed a little more stamping. I mean, it did a great job, except for in two little areas, the ones that I'm pointing at right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the Misty door again. I'm not gonna re-ink because I didn't feel like it needed more ink. I just felt like it needed a little more pressure in those two areas. So this is what's so great about the Misty, is if you mess up and you don't have enough ink on your stamp and you need to re-ink, or in this case, if you just need to add a little more pressure, it's wonderful because the door just swings back onto your card in the exact same spot that you had previously stamped in. So I'm just taking a microfiber cloth and I am just dabbing that Versamark off. I am going to use a stamp cleaner to clean it a little bit better once I'm done with this card, but for now, just wiping it with a microfiber cloth is just fine. And I normally clean my stamps just with a microfiber cloth, but with Versamark, because it's so sticky and gooey, I'm going to go ahead and use a stamp cleaner to clean those afterwards. So you can see they're pretty wet here, so I'm going to have to put this card aside and work on something else while it dries off. I may use my heat tool to speed up the process, but we'll see. So I'm taking this little heart stamp, as I mentioned, and I just put it on an acrylic block, and I'm just stamping it in areas that I felt need a little more filling because I didn't want it to look too sparse. And again, stamping, it takes practice. So what I had done before I was confident to go ahead and stamp directly onto my card is I just take a piece of scratch paper, I put my clear stamp on my acrylic block, and I just stamp, and I just kind of get used to, you know, what kind of pressure I need to use. And every stamp company is different. So with Planners Anonymous, I know you know how much pressure to use, but with each stamp I encourage you to practice on a scratch piece of paper before you actually stamp onto your project. So just a couple more hearts here and there. That heart is just so pretty, and I can imagine using that in other projects. I'm gonna have to remember that that heart stamp is in the Butterfly Skies kit because that is just too cute. It's the perfect size heart. I love it. So again, I'm loving the way this Versamark just made the impressions another shade of purple, a darker shade of purple. I really like that. All right, so I'm just gonna place this aside. Again, I'm gonna clean my stamps a little bit better later when I'm off camera. But I'm gonna put this beautiful card aside, and I'm gonna start working on, I think I'm gonna work on the love portion. Let's see what's coming up next. I don't quite remember what I was talking about here. I think I was talking about that color not being too much of a contrast and how I wanted to change that. And then I think what I'm going to do with this card too is I am going to go back and replace that heart. I think I'm just going to stack another heart right on top. And I think turquoise would look really beautiful because then it'll bring in the purple, the turquoise, and the pink from this beautiful kit. Okay, so here I had already die cut the outline of the love die and the rounded rectangle that's going to go on the inside of the card. And again, this background die for love, it comes within this set. So it's the background die and then the intricate love die and then a couple of other elements that match really nicely with the stencil set that comes with that Gina K Designs stamp set. And I like to put my dies away fairly quickly because I don't want to forget which kit or which dies they belong with. You know how the sets go together. So I like to put them away right away. And then here I noticed that the die didn't cut all the way through. I'm not quite sure why, but I'm just going to clean that up with some scissors. It's not that big of a deal because it's just a straight line. Not quite sure why it did that. This is the first time I had done that, and it may just be that I need a new cutting mat. My mats are pretty beat up. I use them a lot. There we go. Easy to clean up. So the love background and the piece that's going to go inside of the card are both this beautiful hot pink. I mean, they're just so gorgeous. And I loved the stitched shaped dies that have the stitching like that, like this rectangular one. I just think they're so pretty. All right. So this rounded rectangle is going to go on the inside. Not quite yet though, because it's not dry and I just really don't want to mess with this card quite yet. Just checking everything out. Making sure everything's the way I like it. So we're going to work on this love piece now. And as you saw in that card, it's got a lot of dimensions. So I cut several die cuts of the love, as you can see here, because I want to stack them and glue them on top of each other to create dimension. You can definitely just use it with one layer and it looks really beautiful, but in my opinion, stacking several of them, and I would say like 3 or 4, maybe even 5, just looks so gorgeous. It all depends on the thickness of your cardstock. This black cardstock is pretty thin, so I think I'm going to have to really stack it up. So I'm going to be using the Gina K Connect glue. I like this glue because as I start layering these intricate dies, I need to be able to move them around. So using liquid glue will allow you the freedom to slide them around a little bit before they get locked into place. I normally gravitate towards EK Success two-way glue, and I'll show it to you in just a moment, but it's my favorite glue. But I notice when I use that, I don't have very much time to move things around. So that's why I chose to use the Gina K Connect glue. It's much more forgiving. It dries clear, so I don't have to worry about moving it around and the glue showing and stuff like that. So this is a much better glue to use for something like this. So I'm just applying little dots along the very intricate part there. And I'm going to go ahead and attach this to the background die, just so that I can have a little more material to work with as I stack the black dies on top of each other. I don't want to just use just this love die. I want to go ahead and anchor it to the background. That way I have a little more to work with. You'll see what I mean. Just grabbing some tweezers to help me handle this beautiful die. I'm going to apply it right on top. And then, like I said, this glue will allow me to get it centered and kind of slide it around and get it where I want it before it fully adheres. Gosh, I love that V. Isn't that just amazing? I mean, I love the word love as it is. So, you know, that's pretty special, just the particular word. And then the way that is designed, it just makes me so happy. This is that zig glue that I'm telling you about that I really, really love. And I use it for most everything, except for in this instance, want to be able to move it around. So it's got more time before it dries, so I'm using the Connect glue for that. And then once that's in place, then I can keep applying layer by layer by layer by layer. Oh, that's gonna look gorgeous against that purple, don't you think? Look at that. Oh, it's gonna be beautiful. All right, so I'm gonna fast forward during this part because all I'm doing is just gluing, layering, gluing, layering, gluing, layering. Not very exciting, but the result, in my opinion, is very exciting. So we're going to go ahead and fast forward through this part. Okay, now that that's done, this is pretty dry. I'm gonna go ahead and take my heat tool and see if I can speed it up in just a couple of areas, because I don't want to mess up this background. So I'm just gonna grab my heat tool, heat that up a little bit. And then I'm going to end up just grabbing my microfiber cloth and just dabbing it a little bit because it's not quite drying as quickly as I want it to dry. Microfiber cloths are so convenient in the craft room. And I noticed that my heat tool also temporarily discolored my cardstock, but that's going to bounce right back. Okay, so now I'm going to take these nested heart dies. And again, you can order these on heroarts.com or pick them up at your local Joann's. I purchased them when they were 40% off. So I always like going to Joann's when the card making section is 40% off. So to make that border, that heart border, I use 2 dies, but to make the window on the card, I just use the inner die. I'll show you how I do that here. So I'm just gonna kind of figure out where I want to place that. I'm gonna hold on to that larger die for the other part that I'm gonna do. but for now I just need the smaller one. So I'm going to create a window. And then that Love Intricate die set, that's just drawing in the background there. So just gonna place this, I'm gonna place it and then tape it down with some purple tape, just so it doesn't move. I don't use a lot of tape in my die cutting, but when I need my window to be in a very specific place, then I use the tape. So I'm just going to place that down on my magnetic mat. I'm going to place the cleared part over the top, and then I will be right back as I run that through my Empress die cutting machine. All right, and just like that, it's done. Perfect. So now I've got this nice little heart-shaped that's also stamped that I can use in another project. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I usually save my extra die cuts. I usually save them with the dies in the back of the packaging of the dies for use later on. All right. So now that we have the window part, I'm just taking that piece that's going to go on the inside of the card, and I love that contrast. And this is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the first card that I made. I took the piece that I had cut out, and I also glued that on the inside of the card so that when you open the card, the heart kind of remained in place. But I feel like that was a mistake because there wasn't enough contrast. I think if I do go that route and I do it again, then I would put a different colored heart. And here I'm just going through my scraps from the double-sided paper packs, and I'm trying to figure out what color I want to use for that heart. Oh, this, I'm ending up wanting to use the scrap from this paper. This is my large envelope die. This is a very large one, so you need an extra large cutting plate, and you need a large die cutting machine that will accommodate for extra large dies, such as the Anna Griffin Empress. So I had cut that before I had recorded the video just to kind of speed things up. So, but I needed to use that scrap, so I had to take it out. All right. Ah, the color is beautiful. Look at that. Just wonderful colors. So I'm just trimming off this excess really quick so I can use it to create a frame, a heart border to go on top of the heart window that I had just cut out. So you can create borders with your dies. You can just take 2 of your nesting dies, such as I'm doing here, and then when you cut like that, it will cut 2 lines, and so that the outer part will be your frame. So I'm just making sure that this is in the right position, making it nice and even, or as much as I can for that matter. And then I'm going to go ahead and place my paper, my scrap paper over it. Got to make sure it's going to fit there. And I got to make sure it's also going to fit into my machine. So there we go. Make sure you cover the die completely. All right, then I'm going to place my sandwich in its correct order, feed it through my die cutting machine, and I will be right back with that beautiful frame. All right, let's see how this came out. Perfect, look at that. Oh, I love it, I love it. And then I have that heart, that internal heart piece that I can use for a project later on. So keep all your pieces because it'll all come in handy. Oh my goodness, look at that. Look at those colors. I'm in love, 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 love. And then with the pink in the back, absolutely beautiful. And I loved that the stamped images are more noticeable now. So I'm just comparing from the first card. And again, just noticing that I didn't have much of a contrast. All I have to do is place another piece of cardstock right over their heart, and then I'll have it exactly how I want it. Now that I think is a little too busy, but I think if I use turquoise, if I use the other side, I think it'll be beautiful. But for this card, I'm trying to decide, because this is double-sided paper and it's so beautiful, it is so hard to decide which side to use for your project. I mean, it is just such a dilemma because both of them are so gorgeous. This blue that I have facing up right now is just absolutely gorgeous. But you'll see when I turn it over, it's also gorgeous. Uh-oh. See, I was gonna glue that down and then I'm like, oh, but wait, there's more. Oh my gosh. So I sit here and I ponder and I flip and flop and flip and flop and flip and flop, and I'm like, gosh, what do I do? So I take quite a while to make this decision. So hopefully the way I end up going, I hope that you agree with it. And oh, I'm showing here that I can also place this love die right there. I don't necessarily have to use a butterfly die cut. I can put it right there and it'll look really, really beautiful. But that isn't quite the look I was going for. I just wanted to demonstrate that you can use this die right in the center of that heart and it'll just float right there. Because it has an anchor on the left and on the right of that die, it'll just float right within that heart and look so beautiful. So, but I decided that I wanted to go ahead and use another butterfly. And again, just pondering which side to use. So we'll go ahead and fast forward. What do you think I picked? Yep, you guessed it. It's going to be the pattern side up. Aren't you glad? It's just going to look so beautiful with the envelope. I just could not help myself. So, yep, pattern side up. So just using the Gina K Connect glue here again. Again, because it just allows me some room to kind of slide it around and get it in the exact right position. Tweezers make things so much easier. So we're going to get that in the right spot. Love it. And you know, you could even, if you didn't want to use a die, you could stamp a beautiful sentiment right in the middle of that heart that will show on the inside of the card. And here I'm using my favorite Zig glue. It's just so easy to apply. I just really love it. And it dries really quick. So once I get it into the position that I wanted to, I really can't move it around too much. So I pick and choose when I use this glue, but to tell you the truth, it's most of the time because I just love it so much. So I'm just burnishing with my fingers. love that rounded rectangle. Perfect. So here, like I mentioned, you could easily stamp a sentiment right in the center of that heart, and that would look so beautiful. I mean, there are just so many options with these subscription kits. I mean, there's just so many different things you could do, especially when you incorporate dies. You know, it just takes everything to the next level. And here I'm trying to decide whether I want the print on the inside, as you see here, or whether I want the print on the outside. And look at that. I think either way is just so beautiful. You know, I also have to consider addressing the envelope and a return address and a stamp and all that stuff. When I do use, you'll see here that I end up doing the second envelope in this configuration here. I wanted an envelope in each configuration because I think this particular envelope will go good with the first card I made, and then the initial envelope that I made will look good with the card that I'm making on screen here. So anyway, to assemble this card, I just fold along the scored lines, and those the scoring and the cutting happens at the same time with that large die that I use. And I just press this down and hold it there for a minute. Again, this is very, very fast drying glue, so it works perfect for things like this. And it's very strong too, so I love that Zig glue. But as I was saying with the envelope, this one will be much easier to address. The one that's busier with the florals on the outside, I'm going to have to create a really pretty label to place on there before I address it, just so that the post office can see it. But either way, both envelopes are absolutely special and beautiful. I love these double-sided papers. Look at that. I mean, look at all those colors. Just so gorgeous. So off camera, I ended up putting another heart in the background on that first card that you see there at the top. Okay, so now I'm going to look for the right die cut butterfly to place in here. And actually, you don't have to put a butterfly. It can be this vase with the flowers in it. Would look really special. You can put a quote card in the back. I mean, there's just so many different options. I was just worried that with this vase, it just covered too much of the heart. I still wanted to be able to see the shape of the heart, so I didn't opt for that one. But you could. My fingernails are not wanting to pick up those die cuts. So we have that butterfly, we have this butterfly. So as you can see, you get a lot of die cuts in the set, in the subscription. So, but the only problem with getting a lot of them is it's kind of hard to decide. I love the way that first card, you know, that butterfly was just so big, and you can still see the shape of the window, of the heart window. So I'm just going in from the back of the card just to kind of see how each of these die cuts will look. The colors on that die cut that I just put down are just stunning. The pink and the purple, just so beautiful. So I think this one's probably going to work best. And as you can see, I have the left-hand side of the butterfly is tucked in, the right-hand side of the butterfly is out. And that just kind of, in my opinion, gives the illusion that the butterfly is kind of coming through. All right. So a little bit of glue there, a little bit of glue there, and we'll be good to go. Using Connect glue again, so that I have a little bit of wiggle room. And these die cuts are so nice and sturdy. So they're perfect for this. All right, I think that's a good spot. Gonna have to clean up that glue so it doesn't get on the inside of the card. So I'm just gonna use my finger, and then I have my microfiber cloth standing by right there on the right. Just wipe it on there. It's kind of a must-have. That looks beautiful. I love it. So You just have that butterfly kind of floating within the window. Looks so pretty. And then with that pink in the background, even better. Just making sure that that's stuck in place there. And then we'll go ahead and we'll fiddle around with the love sentiment and kind of see where that should be. Don't want it to block too much of that pretty butterfly, so we'll just raise it up a little bit like that. I think that'll be perfect. So we will glue this into place. It's so hard to use such beautiful double-sided paper because, you know, you see the back of that love element and it's like, that's such pretty paper on the other side. But with this subscription kit, you get 2 sheets of paper. You get 2 sheets of each pattern, so not that heartbreaking to use. And then if you get the extra paper pack, which I do, I subscribe to everything. The extra paper pack, the extra stickers, extra everything. So when you get an extra paper pack, you have a lot more options because the extra paper pack is a whole different set of papers that match the kit every month. So I'm just figuring out where I want to place this, trying to remember where I had it. And I think right there is just perfect. So I have glue on the other side of that long extension of the V, so I gotta make sure to clean that up. Oop, got a little glue on there, but we'll clean it, not to worry. That'll dry clear, so we don't have to worry too much about that. Ooh, pretty. Just doing a little bit of cleanup there. Oh, look at that. Look at with the envelope in the background, how beautiful that looks. Now I'm thinking, you know what? I was gonna swap the envelopes, but I don't think I am. I think I'm gonna use that envelope right there for this card because it just matches the heart frame so well. It's just perfect. I love that there's so much blue in that envelope. So really it can be used either way. You can see both are so beautiful. All right, so now it's time for a little bit of embellishment. So here on this first card, I used an iridescent gel pen, a sparkly one. And so with this one, I'm gonna use white because the die cut has a white outline around it. I thought I'd go ahead and bring in some more white to this very, very colorful card. So I'm gonna go ahead and use what I call the Rhoda scraps technique. Rhoda is also in the Planners Anonymous group, and she subscribes to Planners Anonymous, and she does the most beautiful white stitching on her cards. And so whenever I do this, I think of her because this is where I got this idea. So when I do this, I'm using a white gel pen. I do go over it twice. You'll see as I'm going down and then back up because I like it to be really opaque. So I'm just going to go all the way around the card to create this faux stitching. Again, this is something that Rhoda does. You might want to look her up. She's on YouTube, I believe, under Rhoda Scraps. And her cards are just stunning. Absolutely gorgeous. So we're going to go ahead and go all the way around with this. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is a handmade card, and that's part of the beauty of it. And this is not sped up. We're really going that fast. Just going to go all the way around. Actually, it looks good like that, huh, with just the sides and the bottom. But we're going to go ahead and go all the way around. And then we're going to add one more embellishment, which is, I know I keep saying things are my favorite, and it's my favorite to do this, and it's my favorite to do that. But this is really one of my favorites. And you'll see what's coming up next. I'm so excited. All right, one more embellishment and we are done with this beautiful card featuring butterfly skies. All right, so we're going to use this Wink of Stella, and it is this glitter pen. The reason why I wanted to use black cardstock is because it just makes it makes anything look beautiful, but I really love the way this shimmer looks on black cardstock. I mean, it just really changes things. And here I'm just adding a little more ink, but as you can see, I squeezed the pen a little too much. You can kind of see it on that Hero Arts background. I squeezed it so much that too much of the ink of the glitter came out. And so you're gonna see I keep going back to dip my pen tip into that pool of glitter because I don't want to waste it. I just squeezed it a little too hard. But look at that. I mean, it just shines and glistens, and it's just such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful accent. So I love using this pen. It doesn't photograph very well. In the video, you can see it very nicely, so I'm happy about that. But when I photograph my cards, it just doesn't show up as well. Sometimes you just have to shoot a quick video before you send your card off, just so that you can remember how beautiful that shined. So there you can see I'm just kind of adding more shine and more shine. Look at that, it's just so stunning. And this too dries really quickly, so I love it. And you know, I may even go back and add a little shine to that heart frame. It's just so gorgeous. Look at that, just changes it so much. A little more shimmer and we'll be done. All right, there we have it. I keep going back to that envelope, but really I'm going to be using the other one. I feel like this envelope is a little too busy for this design since the background shows up a lot more, which is what I wanted. So even though I place these like this, that's not how they're going to go. I'm going to switch them up one more time. Oh, you see that heart in that first card that I made, that little heart? That's to cover up a glue mistake that I made. At the last minute, I made this mistake, and I tried to pick it. I picked an element off, and it ripped that purple frame. And I was like, shoot, oh my gosh, I've gone all this way. And at the last minute, I messed up my card. But no, I didn't. I just cut another little tiny little heart and placed it right there. And no one would have ever known if I hadn't announced it right now. So this card is a lot more bold now that I see it with the other one. This is a lot more bold. The background stamps show up a lot better, and then that white faux stitching is a lot, gives a lot of contrast. So this is just a different card now. I love them both, to be honest. I really do. I love them both. They're similar, yet very different.